If you're in your 60s, 70s, or even your 80s and you're no longer experiencing intimacy, there's something important you need to hear. This isn't just about pleasure, it's about your brain, your heart, and your connection to life itself. Giving up on intimacy may be silently stealing your health, your vitality, and even your sense of purpose. I'm Dr. James. For over 30 years, I've helped men and women reclaim their well-being after 60. One truth has stood out again and again. Intimacy isn't a luxury. It's a vital part of aging well. You might think, it's too late for me. That chapter's closed. But it's not. When intimacy fades, real physical and emotional consequences begin, and most people don't realize it until it's too late. But there's good news. It's never too late to reignite that part of yourself. Let's start with the most surprising risk of all. What happens to your brain when intimacy disappears? Your brain begins to age faster. I remember a patient, George, 72 years old, retired math teacher. He came in complaining about memory problems. He couldn't remember names, had trouble focusing, and told me, "I just don't feel sharp anymore." Physically, he was healthy, no signs of dementia. But after a few honest conversations, George shared something deeply personal. Since his wife passed away, he hadn't been sexually active not once in nearly 5 years. That's not just a footnote. It's a clue. Science shows us that sexual intimacy increases blood flow to the brain, especially in areas tied to memory, learning, and emotion. It releases dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, chemicals that boost mood, reduce stress, and protect your brain from aging. Without that stimulation, the brain starts to slow down. Focus fades, energy drops, and the risk of cognitive decline, even early dementia, increases. It's not about being young or performing like you did at 25. It's about connection. Emotional and physical intimacy of any kind keeps the mind engaged and the emotional circuits alive. When that fades, people often withdraw. They become less social, less curious, less motivated to care for themselves. It's not just emotional decline, it's neurological. And once that decline starts, it's hard to reverse. But it's absolutely possible to keep your mind sharp, alert, and emotionally alive into your 80s and beyond. Now let's move to what happens in the body. Your body loses circulation and hormonal balance. I once met a couple, Linda and Carl, in their late 60s, married nearly 40 years. Over the past 5, their physical connection had faded. "We just assumed that part of our life was over," Linda told me. Carl nodded, but said he felt different, tired, heavier, older than his years. When we looked deeper, the missing piece was clear. Their intimacy had gone completely silent. When sexual activity fades, especially after 60, the body begins to lose its natural rhythm. The cardiovascular boost from touch, arousal, even cuddling, disappears. Circulation slows. Oxygen delivery to the brain, heart, and muscles decreases. Intimacy in any form is a kind of exercise. It promotes blood flow, strengthens the heart, and keeps the lungs working better. But it goes deeper, into your hormones. For men, testosterone levels can drop dramatically without sexual activity. That leads to fatigue, irritability, weight gain, and even depression. For women, a decline in estrogen and oxytocin raises the risk of joint pain, osteoporosis, mood swings, and even memory loss. These aren't just symptoms of normal aging. Many are direct results of physical disconnection, and they sneak up on you slowly. One day you're walking slower, then you stop exercising, you sleep poorly, you gain weight, and it all feels like part of getting older, but often it's not. Here's something many people don't know. You don't need intercourse to feel the benefits of intimacy. Gentle touch, closeness, emotional connection, all of it can reactivate those powerful hormonal systems. It's not about performance. It's about presence. It's about being seen and touched and feeling alive in your own skin. The longer you go without that, the harder it becomes to restore your body's natural balance. Still, Even these changes don't touch the deepest loss of all. Your relationship and sense of self can suffer. I see it all the time. Couples who've been together for decades, living with a quiet distance between them. No fights, no shouting, just a silence that grows heavier with time. I remember a woman named Margaret. Her husband had survived cancer, but the treatment changed their connection. She looked at me and said, "I don't want him to feel pressured, but I miss being touched. I miss feeling like someone's partner, not just their caregiver." That kind of quiet distance, emotional, physical, unspoken, can slowly erode even the strongest relationship. When intimacy fades, we stop reaching out. We stop initiating. We stop believing we're still desirable. And what's left is a very specific kind of loneliness, not just being alone, but feeling invisible, even beside someone who once knew you better than anyone else. Over time, that loneliness becomes resentment, shame, insecurity. And most people don't talk about it. They just adapt. And slowly, what was once loving becomes routine. Two good people living together, but no longer truly connected. If you're single, this matters just as much. When you stop believing you're worthy of emotional or physical closeness, you begin to shrink, not just in desire, but in identity. That loss of self-worth may not show up on a lab test, but it can take years off your life and joy out of your days. The worst part? It's invisible. You can be surrounded by family and still feel starved for connection. You can be a loyal spouse and still feel undesired. And over time, that emptiness can lead to depression, anxiety, and in some cases, even serious health decline, because the human heart wasn't built to live without connection. But here's what gives me hope, and what I've seen firsthand in so many lives. You can rebuild that connection. You can feel closeness again, even if it's been years. I've seen couples in their 70s and 80s start over. They laugh again, flirt again, fall in love again, not because their bodies were perfect, but because they dared to reach for each other again. And if you're single or widowed, please don't think this message isn't for you. It absolutely is. Connection doesn't begin with another person, it begins with you. Your body is still worthy of care. Your heart still craves touch, joy, and companionship. That path is still open. And yes, you can take the first step, because the truth is, when intimacy fades, it doesn't just affect your emotions or your energy. It may even affect how long you live. You might be shortening your life without knowing it. Let me tell you about a man named Robert. He was 81 years old, sharp, independent, and full of life. When I asked him what kept him feeling so young, he smiled and said, "I still flirt with my wife every morning. We hold each other every night, and sometimes we still make love." It wasn't just about the act, it was about connection, spark, and joy. What Robert didn't know, but science confirms, is that regular intimacy is tied to longer life. Not wild, youthful sex, just closeness, touch, affection, arousal. These moments release chemicals like oxytocin and endorphins. They reduce inflammation, lower blood pressure, and support your heart. In one study from the British Medical Journal, older adults who maintained a regular sex life had significantly lower mortality rates. That's not a theory, that's data. Affection is life-giving. It improves sleep, boosts the immune system, reduces stress, and helps your body reset itself. But when intimacy fades, the opposite happens. Stress hormones like cortisol stay high. Sleep becomes shallow. The immune system weakens. You feel anxious, isolated, and less motivated to move or socialize. These aren't just emotional effects. They have measurable consequences for your health, and yes, even your lifespan. Too many people accept this decline as part of aging. But often, it starts with disconnection. Your body was built to thrive on closeness. When you deprive it of that, by choice, habit, or circumstance, you raise your risk of chronic illness, depression, and even early death. That may sound harsh, but I've seen it happen. I've also seen the opposite. I've watched people in their 70s and 80s regain connection and completely transform, not just how they feel, but how they live. That spark you once had, it's still there. It might be buried under years of silence or shame, but it's not gone. It's never too late to start again. Let me share the story of Eleanor. She was 78 when she first came to see me, sharp-minded, kind, beautifully composed. But when she spoke, her voice trembled. "I miss feeling like a woman," she said. "Not someone's grandmother, not someone's patient, just a woman." It had been nearly a decade since anyone had touched her. She told me she believed that part of her life was simply over. But what she didn't realize, and what I see every day, is that the human spirit can reawaken. No matter how long it's been, whether you're 60 or 90, whether it's been months or decades, intimacy is still possible. Yes, desire changes with age. Your body might not respond the way it once did, but connection, real, nourishing, meaningful, connection never expires. And rebuilding intimacy doesn't have to start with anything big. Sometimes it starts with a simple conversation, a held hand, a shared laugh. Even the smallest moments, eye contact, vulnerability, saying "I miss you," can reopen doors you thought were locked forever. For couples who've grown distant, that first step back may feel awkward or uncertain, but every time I've seen someone take that step, the results are powerful. People feel lighter, more alive, more connected than they have in years. And if you're on your own right now, don't tune out. Reconnection can start with yourself. Your story isn't over. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. I've worked with people battling illness, others wrestling with shame or decades of distance. And when they gave themselves permission to try, just try without pressure or expectation, something changed inside them. Their energy returned. Their health improved. And most importantly, they began to feel like themselves again. The final truth, if you're still listening, thank you. Thank you for being open to this message. Because let's face it, talking about sex and intimacy later in life isn't easy. It brings up all kinds of emotions: discomfort, regret, fear, grief. But here's one thing I've learned from decades of working with older adults: the desire to feel alive, to feel close, to be seen. It never leaves us. It just gets buried under the weight of time, silence, and loss. We've talked about how intimacy affects your brain, your body, your relationship, your health, even your lifespan. These aren't small things. They're real, measurable, life-altering changes. But the thread running through all of this is simple. It's not too late. I've seen people reconnect after decades. I've watched widows and widowers rediscover love. I've helped men and women regain confidence they thought was gone forever. What did they all have in common? They gave themselves permission to begin again. This isn't about turning back time. It's about claiming what still belongs to you. Joy, connection, intimacy. Those things are not just for the young. In fact, they might matter even more as we age. So wherever you are in your journey, married, single, alone, or somewhere in between, know this: there's still time for healing, for laughter, for closeness. And if a small voice inside you is whispering, "Maybe I could try," listen to it. You don't need to fix everything overnight. You don't need a perfect plan. Just take one small step. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's a touch. Maybe it's simply allowing yourself to believe it's possible, because you're not done, not even close. You still deserve to feel alive, desired, connected. Not someday, not in memory, now.